you, and we're celebrating the birth of the man who brought our attention to how divine we are. And so I invite us to take some time this morning to see ourselves as Jesus sees us, to celebrate our birth. And so just imagine that you're sitting here comfortably. And in your mind's eye, see the master teacher approach you. Whatever image, whatever form the master teacher takes for you, see him approach you. See him coming towards you. See him looking at you, eyes filled with love and reverence. He knows who you are and whose you are. Now see him take your hand, and as an observer, get out of your chair, stand with Jesus, and look back at yourself. Jesus is holding your hand. And he's saying, look what I see. Remember how you were created, that in the beginning, God looked upon a void, the void of possibility, and said, something's missing. The world needs something glorious, beautiful. The world needs Suzanne. The world needs Nancy. The world needs Sam. The world needs each one of you. And so Jesus is standing here with us, looking back, reminding us of our own Genesis, when God looked into the void and said, let there be. Let there be. And here you are. And Jesus is standing here with us, inviting us to take an even closer look. Look beyond the layers of other people have said about you. Look beyond the layers of what you may believe about yourself. And see what I see. I see this incredible being of beauty, of grace, of unlimited potential and possibility. And I see you as a way to truly transform the face of the planet in your own unique, special way. Breathe into that. Breathe in to the image that Jesus has of you. Let it go down beyond all the layers that we build up from living this life and really land into the DNA of your being. Actually wake up what's already there. So this Christmas, we dedicate ourselves to acknowledging and expressing the glory, the beauty, the grace, the contribution that we were created to be and make. So just take a few moments into the silence, dedicating ourselves to seeing ourselves as Jesus sees us. Into the silence. I see myself as Jesus sees me. I look upon myself as the glorious creation of spirit. I see and know what Jesus sees and knows. That I was breathed into life because spirit had to express love. I am love incarnated. And today I dedicate myself to living what I know to be true and to bearing witness to what the Master Teacher sees and knows of me. I am God's glorious, grace-filled, abundant, beautiful creation. Thank you, God. And in the name of the nature of the living Christ, we say, thank you, sweet Spirit. And so it is. Amen. Good morning, Unity of Payson.
Good morning.
It is my absolute desire to be here with you. It is my absolute delight and desire to be here with you this morning. Charlotte asked who was glad that Unity of Payson was here, and I raised my hand. I don't remember if I have it in my bio anymore or not, but I had the honor back in 1995 as a layperson, moved from Phoenix. We lived in Phoenix for 4 years to Murfreesboro, Tennessee. It's a small town in a not quite as isolated, but we're in Tennessee community. Did not have a New Thought community, and I wanted something, and so I started having people in my home, and it mushroomed. I mushroomed into the role of minister. Was able to go through the field licensing program and became ordained, and but by the grace of God, Murfreesboro, Tennessee, where I had to explain to people who Wayne Dyer was when I first moved there, has a Unity Church, has an ongoing, thriving Unity Church. And so we met very similarly like you all did. We were meeting in the Holiday Inn, and we used to laugh that we had childcare by the pool. So I was sharing with Lynette that, as we prayed in, that it was so reminiscent that as I drove up, that I had tears in my eyes because I so appreciate what you're doing. And it's just my honor to be able to share this morning with you. So thank you for saying yes to this. So in the Bible, there's a line where Jesus said, those of you who believe in me will do what I do and greater still. Those of you who believe in me will do what I do and greater still. Do we believe that? Do we deep down in the cells of our being believe that? That line is packed with power and possibility. It so compelled me that I felt moved to write a book about it. That's what my book is on the back table. I know for a long time I did not believe it. First of all, I didn't even know it existed. And then if I knew it existed, there's no way that I would have believed that it applied to me. Now, I have a sense of where that comes from, and I think it's important just simply to see the pattern that got established in order to be able to rewire that pattern. I'm going to talk more about that in my talk and then really get into that this afternoon in the workshop. But I remember, particularly in third grade, I was in a religious school, and the religious instructor came and stood at the front of the room and had 2 coins in his hand. And one coin he held out a nickel, and in the other hand he held out a quarter. And he asked, which one would you choose? Then he added a caveat where he said, God's offering the nickel and the devil's offering the quarter. So I'm back there raising my hand saying, call on me. Well, he didn't call on me. He called on Mary Ann Flood. And so Mary Ann Flood slides out of her seat. It was back in the day of the rose, back in 1968. She slides out of her seat. She walks up to the front of the room. She goes straight for the nickel. I will never forget that man's reaction. He literally patted her on the head and said, well done, good and faithful daughter. I wanted the floor to open up and swallow me. Because guess where I was headed? I was headed straight to hell. Couple of lessons landed for me that day. First of all, what I perceived was that God was offering us less. And that if I wanted more, that there was something fundamentally flawed with me, and that I was falling out of the grace of God. So I spent the next several years fighting that natural tendency toward expansion, that we are created to want more. We are created for our desire to expand. This is the way that Spirit expresses himself, itself, herself. You know, that old program still pops up every once in a while. So I got to the point where, that way of thinking was no longer working for me, and I knew I needed to do something different, and, I had nothing left to lose anyway, because I was failing dismally at being a good and faithful struggler and sufferer. So that's when I walked into Unity. Now, the story does not end there, because every single one of you found Unity. Some of us have been around longer than others. I worked these principles for a number of years and experienced a terrific level of demonstration in my life. Yet I knew there was still something missing. And even with the level of my study and the level of my application, and it was interesting because this happened after I wrote the book, I still felt myself like bumping up against this door that wasn't allowing me to go beyond what I knew was possible for me. And it was at that point that I knew that I was going to be willing to do whatever it was going to take to unlock the key that was still missing for me. And that's when I made a decision to play full out, to do whatever it was going to take. I invested my time, I invested my resources, and I invested a level of finances that I had never invested before, to sit with the most powerful teachers about the principle of true demonstration on the planet. Studied with Mary Morrissey, through Charlotte, very closely with her, very closely with Bob Proctor. And I'm standing here to tell you, 3.5 years later, after that level of study, and I continue in this level of study, that my understanding has catapulted, which has demonstrated in the body of my results. And they continue to demonstrate. The thing that I love even more is that since I've left ministry and I'm now doing this, my capacity to serve the law and helping people demonstrate it in their lives has catapulted as well. And that my capacity for impact and contribution has just gone off the chart. Now, and I'm going to share more about this afternoon. The reason I'm sharing this is because if we are willing to hear Jesus' statement, for those of you who believe in me will do what I do and greater, we understand that it is not the individual, but that it's the principle. And that is every single one of us applies the principle, applies the formula that Jesus lays out for us. Every single one of us has the capacity to demonstrate results. Are y'all with me?
Yes.
Okay. Now, I preached, and we did use the word preach in Tennessee. I preached in the South for a number of years, and I know I'm in Arizona, but we did have an amen quarter. So, if you feel an amen wanting to just kind of bubble up, please, you make me feel right at home. Even though we are living in California now. So let's take what Jesus said and unpack it a little bit. First of all, it suggests that he did something. And then it suggests that he knew he did something. And then he understood that he stumbled upon something. A formula that when repeated would allow all of us to experience and create the same level of results that he did. And he wanted to shout this from the mountaintop. And I so appreciate that feeling even more today. Let's look at what he did. What did Jesus do? He fed the hungry, he healed the sick, he raised the dead, he challenged death and said that there was something so much greater than death. When you look at what he did, you can see that Jesus was a results expert. He wasn't just about feeling good, although that was definitely part of it, but what he did showed up in the very fabric of the results of people's lives. When you look at fundamentally what was in common with everything that he did, he stayed true to one principle. He did not make agreement with conditions. That he did not deny the facts. He saw hungry people. He saw ill people. He saw people dying. He was compassionate in the face of the facts, but he didn't make agreement with it. In fact, further on in John, he's very clear about his purpose. And remember, if we are following him, then we sit, and I talk about this in my book, we literally sit at his feet as apprentices. And we pay attention to what he says, and we pay attention to what he did, and we pay attention to how he did it. And so later on in John, he declares, "For this I came, for this I was born, to bear witness to the truth." Now, that can be a rather, ethereal, abstract statement. But for him, it was real and it was practical. He faced illness, he bore witness to the truth. He bore witness to health and wholeness. He faced hunger, he bore witness to the truth. That there's plenty right here in the invisible substance. Abundance is right here. He bore witness to that. And then he gave us the formula as to how we could bring those same results into our lives. He gives us very clear instructions. And there's 3 statements that I'm going to work with this morning, and we're going to really dive deep into it this afternoon to really unpack these statements in a way that they can make a visible difference consistently in our day-to-day lives. First statement, he says, ask and you shall receive. Second statement, pray believing. Now listen to those. They're instructive and they're descriptive because he understood that we're always asking, right? We're always asking for something. If you want to know what you're asking for, look at your results. If you want to know what you believe, look at your results. Pray believing. We're always believing in something. In my book I talk about how we don't need any more faith. We have all the faith that we need. It's a matter of where are we directing our faith. Now, I had heard all of this before. I'll never forget when I first started working with Mary. And I worked with, in close one-to-one capacity. And now she's no longer coaching one-to-one, except she has called in 9 women, and we're on our 2nd year, to work with in a very close one-on-one capacity and in a small group, and I'm honored that I have been a part of that group now for 2 years. But I'll never forget that she would be teaching, she would be sharing something with me, and I would say, "Mary, I know that." And she would lovingly but firmly get in my face and say, and that finger, her finger does. She's wagging her finger. I know. She's done it to me on a number of occasions. You don't know it. You don't know it. You may think you know. You know about it. But you know it when your results show it. Right? Yeah. And the wonderful thing about this is that our results just keep dialing up. That's the invitation. Is that, because I had great results, but Spirit was asking even greater results. Spirit asks even greater results from every single one of us. So when Jesus said, ask and you shall receive, and pray believing, what he's inviting us into is a deeper relationship with the creative energy, to such that we too can develop the capacity to collapse the time between request and manifestation. He understood, and he still understands, that we are creative beings, that we have the capacity to create anything that we desire. This is what we are meant to do. This is what it means to bear witness. He understands that our thinking capacity is our creative capacity, and that whatever we are thinking literally has the power to draw forth, we create. In science, quantum physics is showing this. The guy who just won the Nobel Prize for Physics discovered the boson Hickson field. I don't remember the name of the field, but I'm going to trip over myself and show my ignorance. But just let me say that science is showing what master teachers have known for centuries, that literally we create a gravitational field around us. We are magnets, that our thoughts have a vibratory energy to them. And what we predominantly rehearse and charge with emotion literally determines what we allow into our life, the actions we take, and the results we get. I love that science is finally catching up. Charles Fillmore is just doing flips in his grave, because the guy was a scientist and he was brilliant. And if you've never read Atom Smashing Power of the Mind, I'm going to encourage you to read that, because he wrote back in the 40s what science is finally catching up with now. So Jesus understood that we are creative beings, that our creative capacities are thinking capacity. And he was continually inviting us into the relationship with the creative energy as it is forming and demonstrating through our thoughts. Now, if we really got this, if we really believe this, imagine how reverently we would treat this indefinably, you can't put a value on this gift of our thinking. I want to use the word guarded, but that's not the right word, but how careful we would be about what we allow in and what we allow ourselves to rehearse. The other thing around this is to understand the intention with it. That life doesn't happen to us, life happens through us. And the clearer we become about that, then the more we understand how important it is for us to determine what we are running through our minds. And one of the most powerful ways that we can do this, and this is what I talk about as our first spiritual discipline in my book about following in Jesus' footsteps, is to get really clear. What is it that we want to create? Jesus said that it was the Father's good pleasure to give us the kingdom. Every single one of us has an individual, unique way of expressing the kingdom. How do you know what the kingdom of heaven is for you? By answering this question. What would I love? What would I love? What would I love to do, be, have, or give? When we understand that we are created in love, that we have the capacity to create, and love is seeking to express by means of us, then our desire is love seeking to expand more. Our desire is love's desire. So what would I love? But here's what happens when you begin to ask that question. You are literally trained for a level of success. Your nervous system, you have a thermostat inside of you. Your nervous system is literally wired for a certain degree of good. And if you start going past that level of good, whatever it is, whether it's, income's a really easy thing to relate to. Whether it's 50,000, 500,000, or 5 million, it does not matter. That there is a cap, and this is what I realized that I was bumping up against, that there is a cap that says this is the amount of good that your system will allow. However it got there, it really doesn't matter. Then think about it. When you start thinking about going beyond what your current level is and really start listening to the desires of your heart, you get kind of excited, right? There's a little bit of nervous energy. That suggests that it's not normal. I don't get excited about going to the light switch and turning the light on because I assume that we have harnessed the laws of electricity and put it in service to a higher level of existence through light. I don't get excited about that. I treat it as normal. But when we get excited about thinking about something that's more expansive than anything we've ever experienced before, when we think about it, there's a nervousness. So we have to literally work with that energy because that's the energy that we're broadcasting out, saying, oh, I love this, but this isn't normal for me. And there's a whole technology that I'm going to get into this afternoon around that. The other thing is that we have been trained to pay attention to the 5 senses. And we allow the effect that our 5 senses can see to let that then be the cause. Y'all following me with that? And so if you have a desire for something, a deep desire for something, and you look out in your world with your 5 senses and you look at your calendar, and this is the nitty-gritty kind of stuff that Jesus is referring to. You look at your calendar, and your calendar says, I can't do that. You see it as the cause why you cannot pursue your desire. When in fact, your calendar is the effect of it's your historical document. Your calendar, your checkbook, your relationships, there are your historical document of what you have predominantly entertained up until that point. Y'all with me?
Yes.
Do you not love this stuff?
Yes.
I mean, because this means we can change it. How many of us look at past data to determine what's possible for us? We look at what our precedence has been to determine what's possible for us. What Jesus is saying that as we learn the sophistication and the nuance of asking effectively and increasing our believing in a very real, tangible, effective way, those effects that seem to be causes, we can actually change them. And there's a way to do it. And again, I'm going to get into this much deeper this afternoon. One of the ways is to get very clear, write it down, detail pictures, and begin to rehearse it. You see yourself. Neville, a writer back in the 1930s, said that we sensorize it with the vivid reality, with the vividness of reality, that you make it so real for you that you can't imagine it not being true. Now, there's several things that this does. First thing, it then begins to literally rewire your nervous system to start seeing this as possible. The second thing that it does is that it causes you to entertain ideas that at this level of thinking you are not able to entertain. If you want to change your results, you have to entertain different ideas. Because it's the ideas that we entertain that determine the decisions that we make, that determine the actions that we take, that then determine the results that we have. And then as you begin to really imagine yourself living a life that you would love to live, you then begin to think, you know what, maybe I could do this. And this would be the action step for me to take that would support as evidence that I am deepening my belief in this. And the more we do that, the more momentum we gain, the deeper is our belief, and the more we see our results change. And this is a continuous basis. So it happens continuously. I mean, it's ongoing. Spirit is infinite, which means our good is infinite. And we know that intellectually, but it truly can show up in the body of our results. So let me ground this in a quick example. Woman I had the honor of working with from South Carolina, her name was Elena, 74 years old. She had an effect where her economic situation was going down, wanted to do something different, or knew she wanted to do something to generate money again. She was an artist. She was a portrait artist. She didn't want to go back to that. But her effects said, and she was seeing this as her cause, I'm 74, I need to do what is a known commodity because I need to generate money now. But she was willing to entertain something differently, and she was willing to get support. She was willing to do whatever it was going to take. And she allowed me to support her. So the first thing we did is to help her get clear. So Elena, what would you love? I would love to take photographs with the Hubble Space Telescope and paint these pictures of them. I call them her portraits of the universe. But there was that thought. I've never done that before. I know I can generate good money doing portraits. I've done it in the past. There's that past history. There's that documentation. But what if you could? What if you could? If you believed it was possible, what would you do? That is a key faith question. Jesus said, ask. Always looking at the kind of questions that we're asking. One of the things that I help people do is learn how to create high-calibrated questions. A question that vibrates with an energy that will bring to you ideas, solutions, and support that are a match for what it is that you are bringing forward. So I caused her, I helped her think into, if you believed it was possible, what would you do? She said, I would go get a big canvas. Now, this seems rather obvious, but when you're stuck in your fear, those obvious kinds of solutions, fear literally dumbs us down. And again, I'm going to explain more about that this afternoon. Now, the thing for her is that she had a very small apartment. And so she went and got a big canvas. She didn't have room nor the time to work on the smaller canvas. So she was committed. She was committed to this. So we worked with the energy of being the woman who was doing this, coming from it, not trying to get to it, pray believing. Believing means that it's done. You see it done. You learn the skill of generating the energy of completion. Creation is complete. So as she did that, she was literally vibrating at that frequency, painting, and here's what happens. Out of the blue, she gets a call. Somebody found out that she was doing this, came over and saw it, and commissioned that painting. Now, we know those things happen. We celebrate them. We witness them. The thing about it is now to make that our normal. And this is what Elena's doing now. She's now painting these gorgeous portraits of the universe from the Hubble Space Telescope. Because in that instance, she applied the formula consistently. And that's all it is. It really is that simple. Simple, persistent, and consistent application of the formula. But it requires rigor. Because we really underestimate the power of that habit. The power of the habit of looking to effects and calling them causes, to pay attention to what our five senses are telling us and to say this is all we can do, and to look at what's happened in the past. To look at what our current level of good allowance is. We way underestimate the power of that. And Jesus knew it. He said, it's easier to get to the, for a camel to get to the eye of a needle than it is a rich man. A rich man is that we know. We think we know. And then we come into humble awareness and surrender, and we deepen our thinking into possibility. What if I don't know how this is going to turn out? What if this could turn out the way that I would love for it to turn out? If I really believe that, what action would I take to ground my belief and move me forward? All right, so let me complete this so we can get to our potluck this afternoon. Homework. I taught third grade forever. Can't help but give homework. I'm going to encourage you to come to the workshop this afternoon. This is what I have developed my expertise in. I love this. And I promise you, I know many of you, it's a busy time of year, you may have plans this afternoon. I promise you, if you change your plans, if you come this afternoon, you will hear something that will apply consistently, truly will transform the way you apply spiritual principles. We will get deeper into the principles. I help you get clear about your own version of the kingdom of heaven and give you very real practical tools and action steps to take consistently that when applied will cause you to change your results. Get clear about what is your version of the kingdom of heaven. Write it down. Rehearse it over and over and over. Begin to ask, if I believe this was possible, what would I do? And get support. Come every Sunday with your vision and listen to the brilliance. And the next week, Dr. Lynette is speaking. Listen to her brilliance and look to see how you can apply these principles to bringing your vision alive. Pay attention to when it does start growing and give thanks. Always give thanks. This truly is how we can do the things that Jesus did and greater still. This is how we bear witness to the truth. Look forward to seeing you this afternoon. God bless.